When I was 10 years old, all the kids in my neighborhood would gather late at night to play flashlight hide and seek. Do you know what flashlight hide and seek is? It's pretty much the same as hide and seek, only you play in the dark, and the one who is looking shines a flashlight around, looking for those who are hiding. If he spots someone, all he has to do is shout that person's name. One night, it was really dark. The sky was overcast. The windows of almost all the houses were curtained, so it was a perfect evening for hiding. On my street behind the houses was a forest, a long stretch of woods. This was the boundary of hiding. You could hide anywhere but in the woods. It was very hard to find someone there because it was very easy to get lost among the branches or hide behind the trunk of an oak tree. Of course, this rule was sometimes ignored when someone was afraid of being found. Those of us who sometimes hid there liked to scare the others by jumping out of the darkness and revealing our location. Once, I was hiding in my neighbor's yard. They had a small swing set in their yard. I was huddled against them when a flashlight beam appeared. Suddenly, someone came out from around the corner of the house and shined a flashlight almost directly at me. I bounced aside and ran toward the woods. I lingered for a moment in front of the bushes, waiting to hear my name in case I was spotted. The lantern light studied the swing for a while, then headed in my direction. For a second, I thought I had caught the attention of the homeowners. Most of the parents in our neighborhood knew about our games, but there were those who didn't like kids climbing into their yard. I squatted down in the grass and waited to see who it was. The man pointed the beam of the flashlight right in my face, and I raised my hands to cover my eyes. The strange thing was that he didn't utter a word, just stood there shining the light on me. "You caught me!" I shouted, hoping that if it was the owner of the house, he would realize we were playing hide and seek. Then I noticed that 2 houses away from me, there was yelling and someone running around with a flashlight chasing everyone. I stood up and tried to see who was shining the light on me. He continued to stand there shining the light in my face without making a sound. I started to get scared. "Sorry for hiding in your yard," I said. The man started walking toward me. I didn't like something about him, so I started to back away. The man kept shining his light in my face and coming at me. I ran. When I looked back, I saw that the man with the flashlight was also running. It was an adult. He was much bigger and faster than me. Now I was getting really scared. I didn't know why he was chasing me. At first I ran to where I could hear the other kids' voices, but they had already run off somewhere and I was alone with the stranger. So I turned and ducked into the woods. I fell to the ground and crawled under a thick ring of bushes, curling up there. I saw a man shining a flashlight from side to side. I heard his footsteps as branches and pine needles crunched beneath him. I had no idea who it was or what he wanted from me. I only wanted one thing: to be where the other kids were playing. Eventually, the man with the flashlight went deeper into the woods, and I crawled quietly, like a mouse, out from under the bushes. Once out of the woods, I ran toward the street and was immediately caught by the lead man, but I didn't care. He shouted my name and said that I was now leading. I tried to explain to him that there was someone else here with a flashlight, but he kept yelling, "You lead, you're leading." "Don't go in the woods," I yelled, but no one answered me. All the kids who heard my words just assumed I was warning them not to cheat. In fact, I was just wary of the man with the flashlight. Now, I happened to have a flashlight myself, and I figured I could now see who was following me, just to reassure myself. I walked back to the very house I had come from, and I could hear children's laughter echoing in the neighboring yards. I ignored them and headed toward the woods. I didn't see the lantern light, so I thought the person might have gone back home. I didn't really know whether it was a man or a woman, but I just couldn't imagine any woman climbing into the woods in the dark with a lantern. So I went back to playing, though I was worried that there might be someone in the woods now too, walking around with a flashlight, and that someone wasn't going to play with us. I ran down the street, trying to catch the kids in the neighboring yards, but after a while, I found that there was no one in them. I ran back and started exploring the Bucky family's yard. Ms. Bucky always hung out a pile of laundry there, and her daughter Charlotte liked to hide there, close to the house. She was a year younger than me. I thought I heard something in the woodshed, so I looked back and shined my flashlight into the trees. "Don't go into the woods!" I yelled again and swept the flashlight a few more times in one direction and another, until I came across someone in the distance. I directed the flashlight's light there. It was hard to see who it was, but I thought it was Charlotte. She had brown hair that her mother had cut to her shoulders, and she was wearing a dark purple shirt, so it could only be her. "Charlotte, I see you," I shouted. She continued to stand still. I shined the flashlight on her and called her name again, but she didn't move. She was partially hidden by the tree and just stared at me. I was far enough away from her to see anything, but her head was angled as if she were peering out from behind a tree trunk, and her mouth was wide open. Every now and then she twitched. It was very strange. "Charlotte, come out," I shouted. "Hey everyone, Charlotte's in the woods and she's not coming out of there." My friend Dustin and a few other kids appeared behind me and started calling for Charlotte too. "Do you see her?" I asked. "Yeah, she's behind that tree." "Charlotte, come here," yelled Dustin, but she didn't move. "Charlotte, are you okay? Come here, you fool." She straightened up for a moment, then disappeared behind a tree. We heard some movement, but she seemed to be moving away rather than coming toward us. Dustin started shouting her name and ran after her into the woods. I gave him a flashlight. I was scared again because everything seemed somehow unreal. I went to Bucky's house and knocked on their door until her father came out. "Mr. Bucky, Charlotte hasn't come out of the woods, and I think something's happened to her," I told him. I don't know how seriously he took my concern, but he rolled up his paper, disappeared into the hay for a moment, and then reappeared with a huge lantern in his hand. "Show me where she is," he said, and I led him to the woods where I had last seen her. "She was here behind this tree," I said, but she wouldn't come out and acted like she was sick or something had happened to her. The other kids kept calling for her, and I saw Dustin shining a flashlight in the woods. Mr. Bucky followed him. They scoured the woods for about 15 or 20 minutes, and Mr. Bucky started to get angry. We could hear him calling loudly for Charlotte, promising her every conceivable punishment if she didn't come out right away. By then, any game was out of the question, and we just stood at the edge of the woods and waited. Dustin came running out from behind the bushes, his flashlight running out of battery. Eventually, Mr. Bucky came out as well. "Games are over, kids," he said. "Go back home and tell your parents to help me look for my daughter, and have them bring the lanterns." Everyone ran home. My father carried out 3 lanterns at once. My mom opened the curtains and turned on the light in the backyard so it would be brighter outside. I sat on the couch, upset, and my mom eventually came over to me and began to calm me down. I told her about the stranger with the flashlight and my fears that Charlotte might have run into him. Mr. Bucky called the police and reported his daughter missing. The police arrived with dogs and combed the wooded area, scrutinizing every hiding place. They didn't find her. My mom told my dad everything I'd shared with her. He told the police officer. Eventually, a report was filed. The police officers went to the house where the stranger had spotted me, but the people there were asleep and didn't know what was going on in their yard. The police went around to all the houses in the neighborhood, interviewing the residents, but no one had seen or knew anything. At the other end of the wooded area was a country road that was mostly traveled by large trucks. 2 days later, Charlotte was found on the other side of the road where logging operations were going on, near an embankment near a creek. Her body had been dumped in a waste pipe. The parents didn't tell me anything. They thought they might traumatize me. The next day at school, Dustin told me all about it. He said Charlotte's neck turned out to be broken and she had multiple stab wounds. Nothing more horrible had ever happened in our little township. The police shut down the country road and checked all the truckers and loggers who used the road for months. A curfew was imposed for a few months, and our parents forbade us from playing hide and seek. We didn't argue with them. But to this day, when I think of that terrible day, I shake when I remember Charlotte's face. It was peering out from behind a tree, eyes sunken and mouth wide open. It seems to me that she was already dead then, and someone who was supporting her lifeless body was trying to lure me into the forest.